Right, yeah. Kat, please send in a self-tape for this. So yeah, eventually we had finished it up in August. I think everyone was getting a little bit of Zoom fatigue, and I didn't want it
Mm,
to become passe, if that makes sense. I didn't want it to
hmm
be more. So I took a break. I produced a couple films, which was actually a direct result of Acting for a Cause. I think it resonated with a lot of people in production companies, and so I started being brought onto projects. And then
hmm
as I plan, I'm about to direct a film in spring and summer. And as I'm planning that, I'm like, you know what? I miss Acting for a Cause, and now I can do it on a soundstage. Let's
hmm
just do it. And so I did it, and you said yes, and Nat Wolff said yes, and Mason Gooding said yes, and it's all about the yes of the actors,
hmm
and then we all showed up to set and played, and I think that that's at its core what acting is about. We're doing it
hmm
for an altruistic reason. We're doing it to create impact and
hmm
raise for AMFAR, which we can
hmm
get to and talk a little bit more in depth about.
hmm
And I think that the mission statement says it best: art for the sake of art and impact, and that's what we're about.
hmm Very well said.
Yeah.
I also think like the reason you get so many yeses, the reason that everyone wants to be involved in this is because those qualities get lost in the business side of things. And I think that especially actors really want to be involved in something that is one for a good cause and just fun, where everyone wants to be there, and you're just such a lovely person to work with and so excited, and it doesn't feel like work at all. And I would do a million of them if you'd have
Oh,
me.
that's so kind of you, Kaia. Yeah, I try to I do everything in love, but it's so easy when the work is so fun and
hmm
be adapt. I think that there's another side to all of this, which is that we're adapting a lot of very educational works. We
hmm
did Shakespeare. We're doing The Great Gatsby. We also get to do some fun like modern things as well. So we did This
hmm
Is Our Youth by Kenneth Lonergan. We're about to
Oh,
do The Breakfast Club, which is so exciting. John Hughes Estate gave us the rights. Again, they gave us Ferris Bueller.
what?
So it's all about sharing. I think great works of art
hmm
that that not only serve a purpose of entertainment but education, and being able to bring something like The Great Gatsby that has a lot of historical value and
hmm
present with actors that a lot of people are fans of is great. So thank you, Kaia. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think a lot of people don't know that Brando adapted the version of Gatsby that we read himself.
I did
And
very
which,
quickly.
like, not only did he direct, produce, star in as multiple characters, and wrote it. So, do you want to talk kind of about like why you chose Gatsby, and also like what it was like adapting such a that's kind of like a beast of a book to try to adapt. If Scott Fitzgerald is not
Yeah,
light and easy writing. So
that's absolutely true. Now, actually, we have Nat in the
I know,
chat
Nat, shut up.
saying, uh, "We do miss you, Nat. We do. Everyone will be able to tune in
If you
tonight."
could bring three people on, can you do three people? You can't, can you?
I don't know. We tried yesterday with Mason, but we'll see. Kenneth Lund. Okay, so anyways, let's
Stop
see.
distracting Nat.
If we can bring that on, I would love to. But in prep for that, if you want to look at the technical aspect,
Okay.
the adaptation.
Mhm.
I love Nat. Oh my gosh, he was so fun on set. By the way, just shout out to and the on-set culture of shooting Gatsby. That was a blast. To start off, so I knew that I wanted to do Gatsby for a long time. When I go about choosing a play to do, there's ones that are in the public domain, which I can just do for free, like Shakespeare.
Mhm.
And there's ones that have a process to them. Like when I did Up in the Air by Jason Reitman, I had to go to Jason.
Mhm.
I had to go to the studio that made it. I had to go to the other writer and get yes from everyone, or at least a letter of a letter of non refusal or whatever. I don't know what it's called. And I learned this process of getting rights for things through Acting for a Cause. Anyways, Great
Mhm.
Gatsby goes into the public domain in January, and I know I want to do it at some point. Um, Eventually, basically, I'm writing my screenplay, which is called Rumspringa, and I got really stumped, and I was like, I need to immerse myself in great writing somehow. I had not adapted a play before Kaia. I had never done
Really?
this right now.
You
And
wouldn't know.
I decided to start adapting it, and it's a slow process.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still working on the adaptation, and I start sending out invites to our cast. That includes you, because you were one of you were the first invite. You were offered Daisy, and you were the first person who were confirmed for this reading. So all of a sudden, the cast is asking for the script, and I'm like, I'm not
You're like,
nearly.
hmm.
Uh, like the old stories where young hero climbs up the mountain to meet the mentor, and that's how I felt, immersing myself. Not being able to talk to F. Scott Fitzgerald or Zelda, which
Mm-hmm.
are copied over from letters from her,
Mm-hmm.
but their rhetoric and their use of language and their command of language, and their incredible storytelling. I ended up going into this like momentum state, and it ended up. Uh, I didn't know what I was going to get from it, and I ended up feeling really strong about the adaptation, and it ended up informing my own work.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And like you said, like the fact, I mean, I had no idea that it wasn't even written yet. I said, yes, I'd been wanting to work with you for so long and I was very excited. But even like when we were rehearsing on Zoom, Brando is like on the phone every 5 minutes, still figuring things out, still piecing things together. And then somehow you show up and it all fits together perfectly. But, you do all the hard work so that us as actors can come in and just focus on our
Oh.
one job, and you do every other job and
Well,
act.
what's incredible is I don't want to take all the credit myself. I was able to do the adaptation and direct and produce and do it with peace of mind, because I'm just going to name a few names: Ty Molbeck, Dave Eilers, Joe Blakey, these people on set, Jared Ang, who came through and basically brokered a strong donation from a brand, Dolce, that a price match. And I not ah,
You
that
want to
is
talk
taking
about it?
over. Talk about the root canal.
Do you want to talk about
I
it?
mentioned that, yeah, that I I knew. So I decide, I'm like, I'm not changing on this, and just load myself with Excedrin. And I think that any doctor would tell you, don't do that. But yeah, that was fun. I had on the day of the set.
A
I don't know
true
what
warrior of the theater,
warrior of the theater.
what
That's
you
right.
are.
Go on. That's exactly. Oh gosh.
An important detail of the process.
Important detail of the process right there. Yeah, very important. That
Yeah.
informed a lot of the a lot of the pace on set. It was
Yeah.
like informed by the sharp pings of like, it's super important to give credit where due to volunteers. These are all people, including the actors, including myself. We're all volunteers who are giving our time for the art and for the impact to
Mm-hmm.
AM. So yeah, it was a blast of a process. I
It
really,
was.
I can't wait. I was so worried that I was going to do this, and I don't know if I can do more of these. Now I want to do not only the three more we have planned for this year, or not for this season,
Mm-hmm.
but I also want to like do this for the rest of my life. Like no matter where my career goes, like if I'm my ideal is directing films for the foreseen future. I still want to in
and
Yeah.
sort of why you kind of went with each person you did, like what qualities they had. I know there's some funny stories about why you chose certain people to play
Yeah.
certain characters. So I
Yeah.
thought that would kind of be a fun way to kind of start. We could start with Daisy if you want. I don't
Let's start.
know.
So to start off, Kaia, there was something really interesting. So I had done a bunch of plays with friends of yours, with Brandon Flynn, with Tommy Dorfman, and they can't stop talking about you, by the way. These are people who I have found that in most conversations I have with them, they somehow, I remember like,
I just wiggled my way in.
I remember Brandon, we were on set for this film called Who Am I? And he'll be like, my 19-year-old best friend, my like, oh wow, Kai's getting into acting. Now, what I didn't know was that you were a complete theater guru, that you've been doing and watching and loving theater since you were very young, which makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm seeing you do that, then the Ryan Murphy show, and so I'm like, okay, Kai's stepping into acting. You're perfect for Daisy because it's like they usually cast Daisy older, blonde, all these. And so I thought there was an interesting thing also about um, I think that Daisy needs to be someone who I had also seen your book club and I'd seen how articulate you are. And I realized that Daisy needs to be someone who is articulate and smart, but also surrounded by a superficial world. Now, the difference between you and Daisy is that you yourself are not superficial and don't give in to that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was an interesting, uh, you know, as an actor, it would be an interesting challenge in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you could probably draw from the world around you. You're in Hollywood. You're in this place. You're
Mm-hmm.
young, and you fit all the characteristics of Daisy, from the brunette to the charisma to the articulateness. I don't even think that's a word, articulateness. I just said
Articulateness.
that is a that's a
It's a
new.
word now.
Every word is a made up word. That is a
Mm-hmm.
fact. So, um, that I think that's the gist of it. And I immediately was I had basically sent to someone, a friend, that I was interested in working with you, and then next thing you know, I had sent an invite to our shared PR person, which we didn't even, I don't think either of us knew
I
that
had
we had
no
shared.
idea.
And then at the same time, you reached out to me via Instagram. It was like the perfect storm. We made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that was awesome.
I
Thank you
know.
for saying yes and for being so great.
I will always say yes to you.
Okay.
And I think like when I was sort of, because I always loved Daisy, I always felt like she was a bit misunderstood. It's hard because you have so much empathy for her, but not many of the characters in The Great Gatsby are characters that you root for. They're all kind of have, their own
Yes.
thing. A lot of them are making bad decisions. Like there's no hero. Everyone's pretty self-indulged. Um, but as I was doing research on Daisy, and I sort of found out that a lot of the things she said came directly from Zelda Fitzgerald, and letters that she had written F. Scott, and things that she had said, and that he really based this character sort of around her. I started to understand more of like the why of the things that Daisy says and the things that she does. When she says like, I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world. A beautiful little fool. That came directly from Zelda Fitzgerald.
Right.
And it made it deeply saddening to me, and also just I think made me feel a lot more connected to this character of Daisy, and kind of understanding her origin, because like you said, she can appear very superficial, but I think there's a lot more that goes into her.
Yes, yes, and I love. I mean, there are multiple people that are credited with being an inspiration for Daisy. Also, there's Generva King, who was a young woman that he dated, as a debutante from Illinois, who he
Shout
dated
out
from
Illinois.
18 to 20. And a lot of people give a lot of credit to her as kind of like the inspiration, but I literally I have to turn to Zelda, because literally word for word, certain passages that come out of Daisy's mouth are Zelda's words. And so I feel like people don't want to um, overly give credit, but in a sense, I think that Zelda should have a writing credit on the book. Um,
Mm.
Nat is back at it again. Talk about
He gave us like 10 minutes to focus and then
yes.
came back.
So yeah, ultimately, there's credit to the one thing about Generva that I wanted to kind of bring up is that there I think as seriously as you would any film role or theater role that you might do in the future. I really kudos to you on that. What's the next character we should tackle?
Um, I think let's talk about Gatsby,
Gatsby.
the Great
So
Gatsby.
since Nat is present here, um, first off, I had worked with Alex, Nat's brother, on two plays.
Mm-hmm.
Done as mentioned earlier in this, The Importance of Being Earnest, This Is Our Youth. And I had actually been acquainted with Alex's work and chosen Alex because I was familiar with Nat.
Mm-hmm.
I totally loved the Green brothers, John and Hank Green, and he had worked with them on The Fault in Our Stars and Paper Towns, and was on John Green's YouTube channel for a bunch of videos as well. And I had always been, that's how I was introduced to the Wolf brothers. Anyways, flash forward, I sent out an invite to Nat to be in this, but I sent him an invite for Nick. I want him to be Nick Carraway. I don't know why I went in that direction, but it was an instinct.
Is it because he
And
doesn't stop talking?
I think that Halloween party as me in Los Angeles. I was already there for the reading. We were still casting the role of Gatsby, and I see him at the party, and I'm like, "This is our Gatsby. I've been making a mistake all along. I've been making this mistake." We were at John Hine, who's a wonderful, I think, mutual of ours. I
Mm-hmm.
think ish.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so he had this party, and I see Nat working the room, and I literally went up to Nat in the party, and I was like, "Do you want to play Gatsby?" And he was like, I'm like, if given the choice between the two roles, and he goes, yeah, changed the casting process entirely, and I went to
Mm-hmm.
you, and I think this is a natural transition into Mason Gooding, who is a scene is a scene what I can't even pronounce what I'm trying to say, a scene stealer, and and incredibly articulate and
Oh.
incredibly eloquent, and I had been somewhat familiar. I'd watched Booksmart, and I'd watched a couple things from Love Victor at one point where I was looking at Michael's work for a project, um, and he had stood out to me. But I could not believe, when given the opportunity to go through such elaborate passages, he he did an incredible job. And the last monologue at the
Mm.
very play, for those who are watching tonight, it is. I've never been moved by that monologue in film. Or in a play. I feel like that monologue is just performed in a boring way because it lacks commitment, or it has some sort of feigned commitment to it. And Mason, for some reason, I mean, I don't know if it was the last thing we shot, and I don't know if it was just that it was a long day or what, but he just carried this weight, and it was just masterful. So
Mm.
Mason, and that was you, Kaia, who literally pitched me Mason and connected us, and credit where due. So thank
I
you.
honestly, and I every room he's in is just so much better when he's there.
Is
And truly, when you were asking about Nick, I was like, who would I just want around? Like who would make this experience really great? Because I knew we already had some really wonderful people, and like life's too short to work with people that aren't nice and aren't fun to be around. And the first person I thought of was Mason, and
Right.
he said yes. And it's not an easy role to take on. It's long monologues, and he was in
Right.
every single scene. You know, we would get breaks going in and out through the chapters. Mason was at the table the entire time, carrying the entire thing. And, you know, when you have 3-page monologues, people can kind of drift off, but every time Mason spoke, everyone, you know, whether it was crew, whether it was us, was just mesmerized, and he did such a great job. And yeah, he just really added something to that role that I've never seen done before, and it just made it so interesting and beautiful to watch.
100%, 100%. I was very worried about Nick because I had made him such a central character in this adaptation. I've always
Mm.
been sort of conscientious of the fact that Nick is the weakest, the and yeah, I feel like he took these incredibly long passages, and I mean, uh, I didn't know, you know, going into it what was going to happen, and he ended up making that the easiest part. So kudos to him. Kudos to him.
Mm-hmm. All
We're,
right, should
we're,
we talk about Mr.
yeah,
Tom Buchanan?
Sir Tom Buchanan, Jake Picking. So I had watched Ryan Murphy's Hollywood. I had watched
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Murphy's Hollywood, and I had watched it for David Cornsweet. He was our for our play on the week of his biggest release. I'm going to watch, you know, Hollywood. And I've always been a follower of Ryan Murphy's work. I think that it's incredible the output that he puts out there. And I love The Normal Heart. I think that was so incredibly
Oh my
done.
gosh,
It's so good. And
Matt Bomer.
Jake did an incredible job in that show. I thought that he, um, 6 months later, 8 months later, if I were to think of that show, you know, besides David and I guess Jeremy did an incredible job as well,
Mm-hmm.
not to diminish other people's roles, but Jake was very memorable. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought he played a very nice, sweet character, but I thought this guy is a hulking dude who love to challenge him and see him play the exact opposite. Someone who is who's high status, not low status like his character.
Mm-hmm.
And so literally I gave him the role as a challenge. I thought that I wanted to see him play a role I had not seen him play.
Mm-hmm. And
And
Jake truly was, I mean, the amount of notes that he had on his script, the how prepared he was. And he walks in and he just looks like he was pulled out of the 50s.
oh,
And then to be, you know, kind of fighting with him, it was hard to not like Jake though.
right, exactly.
You know.
He would when he would transform into Tom, I
Yeah.
wasn't Jake at all, and that's what made it so I think easy. When I saw
Mm-hmm.
you play across Jake, I didn't see any struggle to be able to, you know, suspend disbelief and really argue with. About you and I and the cast. Uh, my quote was that 90% of directing, that is a very common phrase, and it was so gratifying to be able to be the sole casting person on this and to basically give someone a role and then workshop I feel like literally like I was right before. I'm still tweaking sound and narration and editing this,
And
and
it's out. When is it? It's out today.
it's out today at 6 p.m. LA time, 8 p.m. Chicago time. And I'm still obsessively in like doing little little things.
In true Brando fashion, you are working up until the very moment and during and after and
yes, it's right. Again, with the incredible team behind me, we've had basically like a final edit since Monday, and I'm like, can we do this?
perfectionist.
We need to adjust this clearer. Last night with like sound person, we're changing the way that sound comes out. Yeah, it's a blast, and in very true Brando fashion. I'm very, very much. I think even when like I feel like I'll be editing my film the day before I submit it into festivals, and even
or
after
morning.
the morning of, right. True,
and just because I don't want to forget Josephine, our lovely Jordan Baker, who also is not American. Like I struggled already to do a voice that was not fully my own because there's a bit of a transatlantic thing, and you didn't give any specific, I want you to do this accent. But then Josephine comes in, and she's Australian, and she does the most perfect, incredible, articulate, wonderful, like, rich voice ever, and I think she just blew all of us away.
She did. I was also surprised to find out that she was Australian, and I knew of her sister and her sister's work, and I knew that her sister was Australian. So it was this weird. I was like, why did I not think that Josephine was Australian?
Your sister's Australian, but why are you?
Why are you? So yeah, I think that Josephine I had actually heard of her work in a podcast called Day by Day. She was directed by a friend of mine named Johanna Block, and they had just talked about her, and I had seen her on a list of a publicist that I like to work with, and pitched it to her. I think Jordan's an interesting role because she has to be a foil to Daisy. She has to be a foil to Nick. She also has a lot of similarities to Daisy, and so it's really hard to create a distinct character. She did that, and she did that expertly. And additionally, consistently, I don't know. It just takes a different level of commitment. I was very impressed with her. I thought, again, it was one of those moments where I felt like the stars had aligned with casting. So. And we have a couple, just to mention the support. Comedic support. I love Owen to death. And then we had Rivka Reyes, a great friend of mine from Chicago, one of the Rock, Ty Molbeck, who was the assistant, the first assistant director that day, stepped in.
And reading all the stage direction.
Reading all the stage. Just tons of credit. It's that guy. And on top, he's in the middle of a bunch of productions. He's going to be in Babylon, Damien Chazelle's film. He's Margot Robbie's love interest, from my understanding. So at the very beginning. So I love his work. In all ends, he's just a creative and another person who I feel like, just like, most of the people on set, I just want to find ways to work with you all again and again and again. So that is I'm missing Kaiyun Kim also came in. She's amazing. She was in a Jeremy back in the day called Dad. Yes. And I saw Jeremy at this event, this LACMA event that we had all attended. And I actually, unprompted, he was talking to one of the actors from Squid Game about Kaiyun's work and how brilliant she is and how he'd love to set something up between them. And I was like, wow. So Kaiyun is definitely, I think that an actor that a lot of people should look up and see her work because
she's amazing. She's amazing.
Am I missing? I feel like I'm missing
Meyer
someone.
Wolfsheim, my favorite character of the entire production.
Yes, I did step in and play a couple characters. I played Mr. Wilson and Meyer Wolfsheim, and I had a lot of fun doing those. I always play a small character. I didn't for the very first Zoom read because I was terrified to. I just narrated it. But I started my career as an actor, and I feel like I will not is back. I
He's
started
back.
as an actor and wanted to be able to continue that. I mean, like my all my favorite directors have done that to some degree, like Roberto Benigni, who like casts himself as the main role in his things. And for me,
John
I feel,
Cassavetes.
yeah, right, yeah. And so I feel like in order to be connected with my actors, I should always I got to sit in the canvas chair.
You did
uh,
have a director's chair. It was very cool.
that was cool. That was fun. Yeah, and actually that marks my very first time on a set directing, producing, and acting, which is kind of the dream. So thank you for indulging me as a cast member in that.
It was a wonderful thing to bear witness to.
Yay.
And then do you want to talk quickly, because but then there's that extra little thing that makes you different, which is that on top of that, like having a total picture, approaching it from every angle isn't enough, but then giving back, that's like, I think what makes it really special. So if you wanted to sort of talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to preface this, at any time in both Kaia and my bio, the link in bio, is
Mm-hmm.
a link to our donation page and also the watch page for tonight's play. Just to be very, very clear about that. So as you're listening about Amphar, I would love it if everyone here made a donation, whether it be something, $25, $50, or even $1, because there's power in numbers. Broke, I think, when I've been broke, I can still give $1, right? I think it makes a difference. Again, power in numbers. Amphar is a charity that was founded in 1985, which is usually unimportant the year a charity was started, except this charity is dedicated to curing AIDS and finding a cure for AIDS, and was created during the peak of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. So for that, for a foundation to be founded at such a crucial time, and then to continue all the way until now, and to continue fighting for a cause, I think longevity and dedication,
Mm-hmm.
a rare thing to find in foundations. I hear about a lot of new foundations. I hear a lot of foundations that have kind of fell off, but they've been doing consistent, great work.
Mm-hmm.
Informed my work, I think, forever. And so there was at least a couple years where we were just fully dedicated to causes. We met a homeless person who was 29. His name was Andrew, and he was dying of AIDS. And my mother made this decision. I cannot take credit for this at all. But she decided to take him in and live with us, and because we found that he was going to be taken over legal guardianship by the state. They were going to be able to make medical decisions for him, which is what happens when a disease progresses so much. And he was having issues of like delirium and not being able to really value of someone's life right before it ends, and at the time that is supposed to be your best years, to see someone suffer, and to see someone suffer from a disease that is treatable but not curable. And so to be able to with AMFAR, and to be able to work with an organization that both works to treat people but is also dedicated to curing something that took the life of someone who meant a lot to myself and my mother. And I think in the world, you know, I feel like just every life is as just I feel like being able to do this in Andrew's memory is something that's really important and makes it that much more personal and special. So we have a beautiful organization. We have a very personal reason that I chose it, and I think that we've already raised around $16,000 between Dolce Gabbana's you know, initial contribution and just people donating right now. We would love to get to 30. That's our goal. So, you know,
we're gonna do it.
We're gonna do it.
Even if everyone watching this live gave $1, we would have $1,033.
Right. And so yeah, I mean, this is again every and MFR doesn't have to exist anymore. So that's the goal.
Well, what a beautiful, I mean, I think that's a very beautiful way to end everyone with teary eyes. But thank you so much for not just coming on here, but from start to finish, everything about this process was so amazing. I know that everybody loves The Great Gatsby, and you know, there's certain books and certain things that you're like, well, you just can't touch that because it's so good. And you proved that theory to be wrong because you added so much color and so much beauty to an already incredible book. And I really just appreciate you and all the work that you do. And I hope that you get to come on here again soon for another book that's in the public domain.
I'd love to, Kaia. I can't wait to see you again. Yeah, we'll I look forward to sharing the play with the world tonight. So thank you.
I know.
Bye.
Bye.